So, welcome back to Third Age Reforged and to Pelennor Fields, which is going to be the site for our battle replay today, and it's going to be a 3v3, and this one was sent to me by Lango over here, who's playing as Lyndon, so we'll go through the blue team's armies in just a moment. But obviously, functionally, this map is very, very similar to the grassy plain. It's very, very flat, and there isn't really anywhere you can hide too easily. There are a few trees dotted around, there's like a couple of terrain features, but there's really nothing major, so this is going to be a very even playing field between all of the armies today. And it has actually been a little while since I've seen Lyndon in action, so it's going to be good to see them today. And this is Lango's army. He's got some 4 Lyndon archers here at the front, of course the basic archers that they can field. Not a lot of armour, so they will start to fall away relatively quickly, but provided they can get some shots down range, they will land most of their hits, unlike the equivalent orc archers, for example. But there are no orcs on the field today, so they won't be overwhelmed too badly, I wouldn't have thought. Meanwhile, back here we can see the main line, which again is a very standard fare for Lyndon. They've got some 4 Lyndon pikes, and at the front they're going to have some Lyndon infantry. So this is a very effective front line, able to keep any halberdiers or any other pole arms at a good length. And then if anything gets in close, the Lyndon infantry is going to be able to outskill it most of the time. Fellow elves might give them a little bit more trouble, and higher tier units of course will beat the Lyndon infantry, but really when it comes to one-to-one engagements, the elves are going to get the better of Kingdoms of Men, and that is going to be the case on this flank, I would think. Back here we can also see that there's some cavalry, and we can see that the weather and mud effects are still in effect, so some of these unit models look a little bit grubby before the battle's even started. We've got some Mithlon Lancers over here, which are the Jav Cav that Lyndon can field. This could be very, very useful considering the opponent that they are facing. We'll get to them after we've gone through the blue team, of course, but decent at sort of helping to mitigate enemy cavalry with their javelins, but also, you know, they turn into Lancers when they have expended their ammunition, so good charges on them as well. Lyndon have got quite a lot of hybrid units, and this is certainly one of the more significant ones, especially on horseback. We've got some Mithlon Swordmasters back here, which again could be very useful for helping to back up that front line. More attack than the Lyndon infantry, so they're going to be able to get more killing done. And over here it looks like we've got another unit of Lyndon infantry in reserve. And then further over here we've got some Lyndon guards, so the slightly better archers. They've also got a shield value, and they are spears in melee. So again, another hybrid unit of Lyndon there. We do have some javelins. I was wondering when they'd show up, the Mithlond Marines, because usually Lyndon bring more javelins than this, but only 1 unit on foot for the time being. He's got 2 units of javelins on horseback though, because there's another unit of Mithlond Lancers. And of course, we have the Noldorin Horse Lords, the knight unit for Lyndon. Very, very swift, very, very deadly with the charge as well. And then there's another unit over here, which is a unit of 4 Lyndon Scouts who are currently hiding. They will do very badly in any sort of sustained engagement, but they can hide anywhere, which is what most scout cavalry can do. So we'll see if they can catch the enemy off guard and get in behind their lines without being noticed. In the centre of this sort of mostly elven alliance, we have Dale, played by Minhash. He's got some Earls of Dale out here on both flanks, I believe. No, he's actually got some Dalian cavalry on the other side. So he's got melee cavalry and lancer cavalry on each side, which is good. I mean, Dale's cavalry is not going to beat more cavalry-focused factions, but it can certainly help keep them at bay. Then having a look in the middle, we of course have Dale's archer line, starting with these Bardian marksmen, of course. Very, very tough to bring down in a skirmish fight. Very much epitomising the Dalian way of going about a skirmish fight with their heavy armour. There's also a hidden unit over here of Athala Rangers, of course. It wouldn't be a complete skirmish line without Rangers. Got some Morroquendi bows as well. Very expensive, but they do offer elven quality to Dale's archer line, and then another unit of Bardian marksmen, so he spent quite a lot on his archer line. He's also got some cavalry, so I would expect his infantry line to be a little bit more thin on the ground, and indeed he's got several units of Lake Town pikemen ready to form up a front line, which can be cost effective, but they can also be zoned out by archers pretty effectively. But we'll see if they can stand up to the army that is across the field from them. I feel like their anti-cavalry bonus will be quite useful. We've also got quite a few units of Barding Herd over here. The anti-armour is going to be useful as well. So it sort of mitigates for the weakness of the Lake Town pikemen in front of them, and they have got a lot more armour than any Lake Town unit you would care to mention. Some Lake Town infantry here in reserve. Obviously they're not going to win any prizes for their quality, but they're still pretty decent with their Astora straight swords, and some Swordmasters of Karnan obviously with the Zweihander. And this is also another unit. They're not AP, but they will be able to hold together a part of the line, which is crumpling quite nicely. And he's got a lot of sort of individual units like these Dalian Spearmen, so he's got sort of quite a patchwork look to his back lines, whereas his front line is very uniform looking. And then his general is in the Blackshot Dragon Slayers, which doesn't really surprise me all that much. They're Wind Lancers and will be very effective, and they can also start to snipe out some of the enemy's more important assets. And then finally, the other elven team, we have Mia Eel playing as Lothlorien. Got some Galatharim nobles over here, which is where his general's hanging out. Obviously a very effective archer unit, very incandescent indeed. And then he's got some Lothlorien blades, again a unit of very nice quality to put on the front line. And some Sylvan Spears over here. Some Ethel Tirith as well, which are the lower tier of Lothlorien archer. But of course they're still going to be able to do a lot of damage, provided they don't get zoned out by too many enemy archers. Got a decent amount of AP back here as well, in the shape of these Lothlorien warriors, which again could come in very handy considering their opponents. And some Metha Ilaz Gelen as well for some javelins, and with Lothlorien able to bring more of them, although he has only brought 2, you can bring 3 now I believe, but 2 units of Lothlorien Mounted Company. As far as Lancers go, they will be able to do pretty decently in melee because of their skill, but cost effectiveness is in question. But a small army here from Lothlorien, and a little bit further back than his allies, so he needs to be a little bit careful. Having said that, we shall now move on to the red team, starting off with Creed, who is playing as Arthedain. Overshot some of his units here, but he's got some Evendim spears and archers here at the front, so the militia leading the way. And then he has got some Arthedain men-at-arms with the armour upgrade as well, so they're going to be nice and solid at trying to absorb some of that Elven archer fire. We'll see how well they do before they get into melee, because they will take some casualties at the very least. And then in the back lines, this is where we can see that Creed has spent most of his money. We see he's got quite a few units of cavalry, including Dunedain Mounted Company. He's got some Fornoster Rain Knights as well, which will do decently against basic Elven units. Over here, some more Fornoster Rain Knights, and then more Fornoster Rain Knights, more Dunedain Mounted Company, and then in the middle of this cavalry, we have the pride and joy of the Arthedain Cav line, and that is the Knights of Annúminas. The Lothlorien Mounted Company won't stand too much of a chance against them in melee, especially if they're backed up by some of these other units of Lancers. Another unit of Fornoster Rain Knights, some Evendim Spears at the back covering these Wardens of the North, which are Arthedain's answer to the Blackshot Dragon Slayers, an AP archer unit at range. And then in the middle, who is deployed a little bit closer to his allies, we have UMERW. I'm not even going to try and pronounce that as one word, but he is also playing as Arthedain. He's gone for a little bit more of a sturdy skirmish line at the back here, in the shape of the Arthedain Marksman. So he might try and go toe-to-toe with Dale's skirmish line, but that might be a bit of a fool's gambit, we'll see. He's got several units of Arthedain men-at-arms as well, although these guys do not have the armour upgrade, so they won't be quite as resilient to that sort of thing. Some Fornoster Rain Defenders and some Dunedain Peacekeepers as well, so all kinds of Arthedain Spears here in the centre. And a couple of units of dismounted Knights of Annúminas, so he's gone a little bit more heavy into his infantry, but he has also got a ton of cavalry, as we can see over here. Some Dunedain Mounted Company again. Sort of going right down the line, he's got 2 units of Dunedain Mounted Company and then another unit of Knights, so the Knights of Annúminas. And then, as we round off this team over here, which is going to be the Númenórean Alliance, we have Rifle Iskaman. I'm just going to call him RJ. Screw it. But we can see that the cavalry is certainly going to be in favour of the Númenóreans because they're playing as Dol Amroth, so backing up Arthedain. That's a very potent mix. So we've got some Doran Ernil swordsmen here at the front, a militia unit, and also some Ethelon men-at-arms, of course, the basic unit. They're looking a bit grubby as well. But a solid front line. Obviously it's not going to be too much of a match for stuff like the Harlanded infantry, but there are enough of them to give them pause at least, and also a pretty efficient skirmish line here of 2 units of Doran Ernil archers on the flanks, and then 2 units of Tirithea marksmen in the middle. So Lyndon will have a little bit of trouble breaking through them. Also got 2 units of Black Swan Vanguard, which probably not going to be the most useful against Lyndon considering their anti-armour nature. Honestly, I would try and keep these back to see if you could reinforce your allies with them, actually, considering Lyndon's almost complete lack of armour. But he's got some Talon Knights as well, so some multiple HP infantry units here in the middle. Then 2 units of Knights of the Silver Swan and a unit of Haven Knights. So, without further ado, let us begin. Going to be an interesting fight this. I think the cavalry superiority of the Númenórean team here is going to be pretty significant, and in fact I think Dol Amroth is immediately peeling off from Lyndon, so interesting choice. I'm not sure what the Elves and Dale are going to do about the present situation. Lothlorien have deployed a little bit further back, I think hoping that the Númenóreans would come towards them, but I'm not sure that they're going to oblige them. I feel as though the Númenóreans might be trying to sort of pose up to go and attack Dale, but we'll see. Trying to form a bit more of a united front here, both sides, because now Lyndon, as the rain starts to come down, are moving over closer to their allies. But now Creed has started to move forward. with his Arthedain army, and this is actually not a bad idea, because I do think that based on the formation of Mir's Lothlorien army over here, Creed could do some pretty substantial damage provided he attacks all at once, or he could just wait for the opportune moment. He doesn't have much in the way of skirmishes, however, so that does sort of lead me to believe he is going to be quite swift once he gets into range of the Elven archers, and he will start to charge forward. Meanwhile, you can see that the other two armies are sort of meeting up to form a 2 versus 2 here in the middle. And I'm still not sure who this would favour. I mean, even Dale have not got the most armour for those Black Swans to really take advantage of. And the cavalry advantage was never really in doubt, so the spears that Arthedain have brought are not really going to be too effective, especially when you consider some of Lyndon's infantry would chew through them. Dale have also got cavalry, but I think it's more for defensive purposes. Still just waiting. Again, the Númenóreans are the ones sort of wrapping around here, which could prove to be fatal in the end, because if Lothlorien cannot hold the Arthedain forces over here, Creed is just going to be able to wrap up the line. But the Elves of Dale are starting to move. Again, just the manoeuvring phase here as everyone sort of gets ready for the engagements at hand. The Elves of Dale are moving over to this flank, probably to try and help mitigate a lot of that Arthedain cavalry from Creed, which is understandable, but a single unit of Elves of Dale isn't going to be enough, I don't think, to sort of cover every angle. Lothlorien are going to have gaps in their line for sure. Creed does need to be careful though, because if he leaves his cavalry lingering for too long, they're going to get a face full of javelins. There's also some Sylvan Rangers over here, so Lothlorien have brought their Rangers, unsurprising. There's probably a couple of units of Lothlorien units which are still hidden, to be fair. But still, just a very tentative start to this battle. No one eager to rush forward, and that's unsurprising because there are no orcs on station. The Dale cavalry is on this flank in its entirety. And then over here, the 4 Lyndon scouts have actually remained hidden, so presumably they're being kept in reserve for the late game. But Lyndon and Dale are now forming up a very united front over here. So it remains to be seen who is going to make the first move. 21,000 frames is not a hugely long battle for a 3v3, so I would imagine that things are going to progress relatively quickly once the battle has been joined. So Minhash is now going to pull back some of his more vulnerable, more expensive archers like the Athala Rangers and Morwenni bows, so they can't be skirmished down by Arthedain across the way. There's some little lancers over there, but I mean, the cavalry advantage is certainly in the Númenóreans' favour, I would say, but it's not to the point where they can afford to be too reckless with it, because the Elven Alliance over here does have some pretty nasty tools. Unidine Mountain Company, I apologise if my voice is a little bit croaky, the allergies are still plaguing me. Ethel Tirith moving a little bit far out of formation, I'm not sure what they intend to do over here. But they will be charged down immediately by the Dunedain Mounted Company as soon as Creed sees them. So those Dunedain Mounted Company sort of moving off again. Yeah, they're a little bit too far away, and I mean, there's another unit of Ethel Tirith over here. Yeah, and now the cavalry's coming. Will they be able to get away? I'm not sure. Well, they did peel off. I suppose they don't want to get too close to the Maithe Ilaz Gelen. Oh, they're actually coming back. So Creed leading the way with the Dunedain Mounted Company, and he is going to be able to connect with them, I think. So he's going to get a nice charge here off on the Ethel Tirith, and that is Lothlorien. The one thing they do have against Creed's Arthedain army is an abundance of archers, which they can use. So he can't afford to lose too many of them, and a nice charge there, dealing with several of them, and the Dunedain Mounted Company able to get away completely unscathed. Actually, he's going to come back for another bite of the cherry, which might be a little bit too greedy, because the Mython Lancers are there, and indeed there are Sindar Blade Masters which have revealed themselves, and now the Maithe Ilaz Gelen throwing a few javelins into the back of these Dunedain Mounted Company. So yeah, that greedy second charge ultimately proving to be the great equaliser in this situation. Actually, it was the Mython Lancers throwing their javies over here. Again, I don't think that was worth it from Creed, because the Ethel Tirith are still able to fire a functional unit. Losing cavalry units is going to be much more detrimental to that unit's continued success, especially as they start to lose more and more into the late game. Still though, neither side too eager to commit. I think Creed is going to have to eventually. I mean, he's got some Evan archers which he can use to skirmish, but they're going to be no match for the numerically superior Lothlorien forces. I'm not sure what on earth the Lothlorien player is doing over here, sending his mate Ilascallan out all alone. I think he realised immediately what it was he was doing, and he's going to sort of fall back to the safety of this slight divot in his stakes. So what is going on over here? You can see the Dol Amroth moving over some knights to the Silver Swan. I think they're sort of picking out Lothlorien as the lame duck over here. I think they realise that with liberal application of cavalry pressure, Lothlorien will eventually crumble faster than his allies, because he simply doesn't have the manpower here to withstand that sort of thing for too long. And with a united front from Dale and Linden, you can actually see that Dol Amroth is moving their entire army to sort of, I think, take up the position in between both Arthedain forces, so that's interesting. There is a unit of Bardian marksmen coming out here, presumably to try and take pot shots at the Dol Amroth army as it moves across their field of view. But they need to be careful as well, because the cavalry could well turn around and charge them instead. Which again, another thing Dale have in their favour here is the skirmish. The Elven Alliance certainly has the skirmish advantage across the entire field. So they can't really afford to be too reckless with this sort of thing. Dunedin Mounted Company, and indeed those Fornoster Rain Knights, they've seen their target. Although with their charge trajectory, I mean, the Earls of Dale could intercept them if they see them. I'm not really sure why they're sending out individual units of skirmishers though, the Elven team. It's a very strange way of doing things. And now they are moving forwards. I think they're now moving backwards. I think they realise the death that is coming their way. And indeed the Fornoster Rain Knights, I don't think they're going to be able to catch them. They're going to be able to retreat from behind the skirmishers. Or the skirmishers, the stakes. Oh, this is risky. They need to get out of there quickly, otherwise the Earls of Dale are going to catch them. And those armoured lancers are going to stand absolutely no chance, especially not with the support of those Mithlon lancers. So again, Creed trying to use his cavalry, but again, it's sort of given a bloody nose for its trouble. I'm not sure what they're hoping to accomplish here, because Creed has now fallen back. Lothlorien could force him to move forward, I think. He hasn't got enough Evan archers to withstand that sort of pressure for too long. Dol Amroth sort of setting up here in the middle. Not really too much of a united front here in the middle. I'm surprised nothing's actually happened yet with regards to a genuine engagement. I mean, Linden are now sort of wrapping around the flank over here, which, again, could be the sort of thing which is bad for Arthedain over here, because they have sort of surrendered the sort of wide front line advantage they had with Dol Amroth helping Arthedain over here. But if Linden start to attack Arthedain over here, things could get messy for the Númenórean alliance pretty quickly. Minhash here, keeping his front line in a relatively solid position. The Dalian cavalry and the Lothlorien cavalry and the Linden cavalry forming up here. Dol Amroth has been moving their entire army across the battlefield sideways for some time now. I'm not sure what they hope to accomplish here, because he's not going to be able to move quickly enough to catch the enemy by surprise. It's very clear what he's attempting to do. We shall see though. There's still those Knights of Illuminas and the Haven Knights for the Númenórean alliance, which are going to be very, very difficult for the elves to bring down. Ethelon Man-at-Arms here. Again, yeah, there's only one unit of Abandim archers over here as far as skirmishers go. Well, there are the Wardens of the North as well, but Creed would be very reluctant to use his armour-piercing missiles on basic Lothlorien archers. I mean, if I was Lothlorien, I would be very tempted to ask for assistance from my ally to push forward and try and skirmish Arthedain into attacking. Make Creed's army feel a little bit uncomfortable, because going that light in terms of skirmishers is a risk. Also now, however, the Elven Alliance is somewhat separating. Linden is going to fan in from the side over here. Dale is going to set up a front line against Dol Amroth in particular. This Arthedain army is now going to be... Oh, hello. That is actually an engagement. I was wondering. We do have a fight now between the Noldorin Horse Lords and the Dunedin Mounted Company, which is a very one-sided affair. The Noldorin Horse Lords are going to be able to butcher the Dunedin Mounted Company. The Forlinden Scouts are also coming in here against another unit of Mounted Company, and this will go the other way. The Forlinden Scouts will not be able to stand up to the Mounted Company at all. But these Noldorin Horse Lords just absolutely hacking their way through. this Arthane cavalry. Where did the Knights of Numinos go? They had 2 units of Knights of Numinos. They need a unit of Knights over here, because they're not going to be able to stop the Noldorin Horse Lords without them. They're going to need some spears to cover the back line now, I think, as the cavalry continues to probe. And now the Noldorin Horse Lords are going to be helping out what's left of the fallen scouts, who were very rapidly dealt with by the other unit of Mounted Company. But now the tide is going to turn once more, and the Noldorin Horse Lords are going to have victory over here against the Mounted Company. Yeah, the Mounted Company are Lancers, of course, and they stand no chance against a Knight unit like the Noldorin Horse Lords. They're actually backing off, though. That surprises me. I suppose Lango's going to try and get some charges off? Or is he just going to retreat? Very strange. I think he would have had victory quite easily. Well, actually, now I see why. There's Knights of Numinos over here. Mithlon Lancers coming over. Taking some arrow fire from the Arthedain skirmish line, however. But these Harlinden Guard are now into position. Now the Mithlon Lancers throwing their javelins into the Knights of Numinos. Those arrows are going to be able to pierce their backs as well. Noldorin Horse Lords still being very aggressive. So yeah, Arthedain over here is struggling to deal with Linden's combined arms here. The armor-piercing missiles, the Knights, the Archers. They're having a bit of a tough time of it. These Dunedain Rangers have been absolutely slaughtered in a skirmish fight with Linden as well, and they received a charge from the Horse Lords. So the body-piercing projectiles are now gone. This is going to force the Númenórean alliance to be a little bit more proactive, I think, because they're certainly losing on this flank, so they're going to need to attack the other side to try and equalise this, I think. If they simply sit there, they're going to surrender any advantage they have. These Mithlon Lancers throwing their javelins into the Knights of Numinos, and the Knights of Numinos not particularly swift. And this may prove to be their downfall here, because they are taking losses. There is this Dalian cavalry over here as well, which is presumably going to try and help Linden's cavalry really press home this advantage. Pretty good idea. There's Noldorin Horse Lords getting into the front of those Arthedain men-at-arms, followed up as well by the Dalian cavalry, although they're going to find themselves in combat with the Knights of Numinos, which is not really where they want to be. But that single unit of Arthedain men-at-arms certainly took a beating. Mithlon Lancers have come back. I think at this point the Dol Amroth cavalry needs to get over here, because things could spiral out of control pretty quickly for the Númenóreans. Some of those Mithlon Lancers are starting to fall away. I think they're out of ammunition though, so it's not the end of the world. They've moved forward their Mithlon Marines now to throw their javelins in here, and these Knights of Numinos still holding relatively firm considering the amount of pressure they've been under so far. And now we can see the Noldorin Horse Lords getting into the back lines, getting into the Dunedain Troll Slayers, which were hidden up until now. And those Horse Lords, they're starting to fall away now, but they've done a lot of damage so far. Now though, let's have a look up here, because Creed is now launching a frontal assault here into the Lothlorien lines. There are some Sylvan Spears here, so we don't want to hang around for too long, even with a unit as durable as this. I'm honestly surprised he didn't do this earlier though, sort of push in with his infantry and fan out with his cavalry, because Lothlorien is not going to have the numbers to deal with this. Especially with their formation being very much a blob. But again, a bit of a stalling here. The Avondym archers are firing into the Lothlorien blades. But he needs to get in there, he needs to start doing some real damage. Dol Amroth also attacking Dale. Let's have a look at what's going on over here. These Knights of Numinos are still going strong, getting into those Mithlon Marines. Knights of Numinos, very, very durable unit, of course. But I think there are still some Noldorin Horse Lords, but they are pretty battered at this point. But Linden should probably start to commit their infantry and try and wrap up Arthedain so that they can then move on to the back lines of Dol Amroth. Because things could start to get pretty ugly over here for the Linden's allies. Archers firing back and forth. Oh, for those Lake Town pikemen taking some pretty grievous losses from the Dol Amroth archers. They might even be taking some friendly fire considering how close the Dol Amroth archers, Dalian archers are, I say, and they're firing right up into the air. Not the best archer positioning here from Minhash. Might live to regret that. Meanwhile, over here the chaos has begun to the point where I'm actually going to lower the speed a little bit here. The Dunedain Mounted Company charging into the rear. There's also some Knights of Numinos back over here. The Mithlon Lancers being overwhelmed. Where is the Lothlorien cavalry, I wonder? Well, there is some over here, the Lothlorien Mounted Company. Dunedain Mounted Company getting broken off, however, by the Galathrim nobles. There's the other unit of Lothlorien Mounted Company. But yeah, Lothlorien here They never really had too much of a formation, which is why I'm surprised Creed didn't launch an assault like this earlier, because they were always ill-prepared for an advance like this. Arthedain men-at-arms moving in. They will lose to the Lothlorien warriors. However, it doesn't really matter too much because the sheer numbers that Arthedain are bringing to the table, the gaps in the Elven formation over here, going to be too much for them to deal with. Dale, meanwhile, are having to move forward because their pikes are taking such a battering from the Dol Amroth archers. Let's go back up to 1 speed. Here we can see a huge amount of Arthedain men-at-arms. The numbers are going to be too much here for the Lothlorien blades. All the units very muddy, which makes sense considering it's raining. These Sindar Blade Masters really doing a number on these Arthedain men-at-arms, but it's the Arthedain cavalry where most of the damage is going to be done. There are these Fornost Array Knights. They need to engage a little bit more concisely against the Lothlorien Mounted Company though, because 1-to-1 they will beat the Fornost Array Knights. Not the Knights of Illuminus, however. Getting a nice charge there into the Lothlorien warriors. Just a little under 10 of them falling. The Maetha Ilazgelen could be just the thing, however, to keep the Knights of Illuminus at bay. And actually Lothlorien counter-attacking into the Arthedain cavalry. There are these Grey Company over here, however. Hidden at the start of the battle, and of course they have body piercing. Rangers on horseback. So they're going to be able to do grievous damage to Lothlorien, but Lothlorien's infantry is already falling apart. They're just surrounded. So how are things going right on the other front? As we have a look at Linden. Linden are moving in. Arthedain have reorganised their front line. But ultimately their front line of Arthedain men-at-arms is going to be no match for Linden over here. And I think, you know, Arthedain just don't have the numbers over here. So it remains to be seen whether or not the Arthedain army on this front is going to do better than the Lothlorien army. Because Linden can't afford too many casualties to keep their effectiveness high. We shall see. Dismounted Knights of Illuminus are coming in. And they will do decently against this Linden infantry. We'll see. I think Arthedain will be able to hold for some time over here, but I think they will ultimately end up losing. Meanwhile, over here, we can see that the engagement has begun between Dol Amroth and Dale, and Dol Amroth has picked their target pretty well, because while the Black Swan Vanguard's AP won't be useful against the Lake Town units, it will be against some of the more heavily armoured troops they have scattered throughout their army. And ultimately Dol Amroth's front line is going to be of higher quality than Dale's here. The Lake Town infantry no match for the Ethelond men-at-arms. But over here we do have some Barding Herd, and the Barding Herd are going to be a very important tool for dealing with this sort of basic Dol Amroth infantry. Remains to be seen though. Dale do have some decent reserves. They do have skirmishers, but they need to pick their targets well. Honestly, I think with Dol Amroth's cavalry they should be fine. I'm surprised actually that Dol Amroth hasn't committed their cavalry to help their allies, because with Dol Amroth's cavalry, Lothlorien would have crumbled a long time ago. As it is, they're still putting up a fight here against Creed's Arthedain army. As more dismounted Fornost Array Knights move in to try and deal with these Maetha Ilazgelen. The first row of them fell, however, underneath that volley. How's Arthedain's cavalry doing over here? They have pulled out. Several of them have fallen. Some Dunedain Rangers have revealed themselves. Yeah, I'd say things are looking pretty bad for the Elven Alliance at this point, because Arthedain are going to be able to hack their way through Lothlorien on this side before the Arthedain army on the other side falls away. The Haven Knights are also menacing this flank. Let's see here. Banderbrass archers, decent damage on them actually, and they're actually causing some pretty serious wounds to those 4 Linden archer units. Defeat is almost certain for these Arthedain men-at-arms. Slowly but surely the Mithlond Swordmasters will hack their way through them. And actually the Arthedain infantry corps has not done well over here at all. Where did the dismounted Knights of Illuminus go? There were 2 units of them. But 1 unit's over here, there's only 21 of them left, and they're being completely overwhelmed. There's also some Harlan Guard going around the flank. Now, unit of Knights of Illuminus is still alive, but alive is a relative term. You can see here the Dunedain Troll Slayers. After taking those charges from the cavalry, they're not really quite the menace they could have been. But yeah, Linden are going to win on this flank. They're just in the process of tidying up the Arthedain infantry. So let's have a look at how many men Lothlorien have left alive. Individual Elven units, of course, much more difficult to get rid of. And Lothlorien's still putting up a fight, but they will ultimately lose, of course. They have been outmaneuvered. And actually now, Creed is starting to get into some Dalian units. These Sword Masters of Khanan over here. Of course, they can hack their way through Evendim spears all day long, but there are too many Arthedain units over here, really. Meanwhile, what is going on over here? Haven Knights, only 11 Haven Knights left alive. What were they doing? They must have been under fire from the Blackshot Dragon Slayers, or something. Or they must have charged headlong into pikes and halberds, because Haven Knights should easily be able to beat Earls of Dale in a sustained fight. They're going to charge into the Blackshot Dragon Slayers over here. I'm not sure why they're idle. They still have their bows out. You can't afford to be too picky in this sort of situation. You just need to have your units firing at some sort of decent target. So there goes the Lothlorien, trampled into the mud by the Arthedain Knights. Victory seems set for these Haven Knights. I'm not sure that's going to last. I mean, Imrahil could find himself dead here, overextending himself quite a bit. Let's have a look at the front line. Where the Lake Town units are, I think Dol Amroth will win the front line. There goes Imrahil. Yeah, Dol Amroth are going to win the front line really easily. Where the Barding Herd are, Dale have held up better, but not to the extent they needed to. So ultimately Dale's front line has fallen. But Dol Amroth's cavalry is no longer in effect. We'll see. I would still give the advantage here to the Númenóreans. Lyndon need to get over here and help Dale out very quickly. And unfortunately that battle was further away. The other Arthedain army under the command of Creed here is going to have immediate access to Dale's backlines. Meanwhile, these Evendim archers being engaged by the Morroquendi bows, only going to be one winner in that fight. Earls of Dale still alive. You can see here they're wrapping up the skirmisher line, and with the Black Swan Vanguard leading the way. There's some Sylvan Rangers over here, body piercing. I'm not sure what these Blackshot Dragon Slayers have been doing all this time. They did have their bows out, so I assume they still have ammunition. And that is absolutely critical ammunition at this point. The Ithilda Rangers actually still do have ammo, but they're not going to be able to get away in time to... Oh, actually they did. They got a volley off into those Ethelon men-at-arms. The Grey Company moving across over here, getting into melee with those Sylvan Rangers. Ooh, what was that? The Blackshot Dragon Slayers, they've fired a volley there into the Grey Company, I think, and really did a number on them. Now, though, we do see the arrival of some of Lyndon's reinforcements, which was sorely needed on this front line. So both teams are wrapping up each other's original front lines. And that is ultimately going to lead to essentially both teams swapping their starting side of the battlefield. Well, there goes the original Arthedain general. Creed's is still intact, of course, and I do think Creed's army is maybe a little bit too strong for what is left. I mean, there's some Dunedain Rangers. They do have their blades out, though, so that's not a unit with ammo. These Morroquendi bows still fighting hard against these... oh, well, I say that, they just routed. They count as mercenaries, I think, so the one Elven unit, which doesn't really have the highest level of morale. These Ithilda Rangers utterly surround it. The Barding Herd, though, getting back into the action. That AP will be useful, but I don't think there's enough of them to really make a huge difference. Meanwhile, the backlines here, Morroquendi bows are routing, but Dol Amroth's backline's horribly compromised, of course, by the arrival of Lyndon. Unit of Dalian spearmen back here as well, so Dol Amroth's skirmishers will be tidied up. But the rest of Lyndon's army needs to sprint over here now. Creed sending over some dismounted Fornoster Rain Knights. A good unit to go after Lyndon's infantry with. Well, these Dalian spears, I don't know what they're going to go after. Possibly what's left of Creed's cavalry. These Earls of Dale are doing their best, but there are still some Knights of Annúminas in here. And that's a lot of Fornoster Rain Knights for them to have to hack their way through. Morroquendi bows still routing. Blackshot Dragon Slayers still alive. There's one Grey Companyman still trying to pursue them. So what is going on now? Yeah, that one unit of Barding Herd presumably wasn't really sufficient, and indeed it broke. And this strong point of Dol Amroth infantry, considering it, and now the Arthedain infantry has sort of formed up a bit of a death blob. And I don't think Lyndon are going to be able to stop it. Those 4 Lyndon pikes are marching in formation, which you really need to take them out of formation and sprint them in a situation like this. So 4 Lyndon archers that still have their ammo. Dunedain Rangers. Lyndon's forces are over here, putting up a fight, but I don't think it's going to be sufficient. Very close. technically speaking, in terms of percentages, the Elven Alliance is ahead, but I don't know. There's the Wardens of the North as well. Well, there's a lot of Linden troops still over there. Making their way over a little bit slowly, however. They need to present more of a united front than this. The Blackshot Dragonslayers still have ammo, which could prove to be a very important factor here. Arthedain men-at-arms charging in. This is a lot of men for them to try and hold at bay. The Blackshot Dragonslayer doing their best to help out, firing into the side. And those Ethelon men-at-arms have realised that. That is a lot of cavalry from Creed, though. And I think this is going to be it. I think the Blackshot Dragonslayers are about to be made defunct. Those Morroquendi bows are going to try and absorb the charge of that cavalry, I think, which is amusing. Well, they didn't really slow them down too much. The Blackshot Dragonslayers might get away, although it's just going to lead them back into the Harland Infantry. There's not many Knights of Illuminus left, however. This has turned into Linden against the world, but they're shaken on the front line. I think the Talon Knights are causing fear, and a rear charge is going to be sufficient to break them. Well, I say that, those pikes have managed to stand firm. More reinforcements being added to the front line. It's desperate times for Linden, but they're not dead yet. These Talon Knights are trying to wrap around, however. What's going on up here? The Wardens of the North are in melee. Victory seems certain. Linden are actually going to be able to overwhelm over on this front, however. Actually, I don't know. I think Linden might have this. Fornoster Knights routing. Ethelon men-at-arms routing. Linden are now wrapping around to attack the enemy's back lines. I cannot believe that Imrahil is still alive. Actually, that's not Imrahil. That's just a random Haven Knight. But he's still alive. Yeah, I think Linden might have this. Harlingen Guard going around the flank. I think it's just too many pikes for the Númenorian Alliance to hack their way through. And slowly but surely, I think Linden are going to run out the victors here. The Wardens of the North victory still seems certain, but as soon as the pikes get their ducks in a row and form up against them, that's going to change.
How our cowardly foe runs. It's time to press the attack.
That is Dol Amroth's army? Surely not. What happened to the Talon Knights? Oh no, the Talon Knights are still alive. That must be the other, well, there's scattered units of Dol Amroth troops which came back from routing. Oh, these Blackshot Dragonslayers have got a grisly rear shot into the Talon Knights. Those AP missiles, every little helps at this point. But I think the Elven Alliance with Dale is going to prevail here. The Wardens of the North trying to get away. They realise that they're not really going to have the best joy at dealing with those pikes head on. But I don't think it's going to matter too much. I think it's already too late. And even if they do rear charge the Linden forces over here, they're just going to be sandwiched by the pikes. So a lot of routing units, including routing Black Swans. More routing off here, yeah. Linden have got this in the bag. The Wardens of the North, they're just going to go in and try and kill as many of those pikemen as they can, I suppose. This is going to be the end. Those Ethelon men-at-arms are coming back. Wardens of the North, a very nice looking unit, Dunedain Steel Bowmen. But they're about to be poked to death, and it's too late for Creed. He can try and run away, but it's not going to avail all that much, because this is really the only unit they have left. Those Ethelon men-at-arms are wavering, so I think it's probably for the best actually that we go up to ×2 speed here. Wardens of the North trying to sort of get around the pike formations just to get as many kills as they possibly can.
Behold how our cowardly foe runs.
There goes the Dalian army. No, not the Dalian army. The Dol Amroth army. So the Wardens of the North going to put up a last stand here. With the Blackshot Dragonslayers coming in to show who's the best AP archer, I suppose. going to be it. I think that's going to be it anyway. There might be a couple of units still alive. I think this should be the last unit left. But yeah, the elves winning. I thought with how Lyndon were a little bit stretched out, I thought that the united front of Dol Amroth and Arthedain would have been able to carry the day, but I was mistaken. The casualties they took must have been sufficient enough to prevent that. There is the Arthedain general here of Creed. Pikes just slowly backing him up. And there he goes.
We are victorious. Our soldiers have fought and died well.
Victory
today.
for the Elven Alliance. So let's see how well each player did. Lango with the most kills. Again, I'm not sure really how much you can read into the Númenórean team's kills, because obviously they were facing elves. I think this sort of shows how well Creed did in a way, because he was up against Lothlorien, got a lot of Dalian kills as well. I think that ERW over here did struggle a lot with the Lyndon advance, so obviously he didn't do so well. Lothlorien as well was the same on the other flank, so each team lost a flank. The middle was actually lost by the Elven Alliance as well, I think. I don't think Dale would have been able to beat Dol Amroth, so Lyndon really did carry the day there. Having a look at some of the kills here. What got the most? A unit of Harland and infantry with 201. All of the units doing relatively well. I mean, there wasn't really a runaway unit that did really well here, but all of them worked together in a very, very good performance from Lyndon. I feel as though Creed did well as well on the other side, but you know, maybe trying to commit that cavalry a little bit earlier when Lothlorien didn't have the assistance of Dale might have been the thing to do, but hindsight is 2020, I suppose. So yeah, that is a battle replay here on the Pelennor Fields, and I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you will join me for whatever is next.